For nearly all of human history, mothers nursed their children for years, not months. So why does modern society treat anything past 12 months as somehow extreme? The proof is locked inside fossilized teeth, and it rewrites what we call normal. Tonight, we are going to find out that. Most people today think of breastfeeding in terms of weeks, or maybe a year if the mother is lucky with time and support. In a lot of industrialized countries, nursing ends well before a child's first birthday. Once you pass the 2-year mark, the word people reach for is extended, as if you've gone past some natural limit. The assumption is so built in that it feels biological, like the way the body was designed to work. Nobody really asks where that baseline came from. And that's the strange part, because the body has opinions of its own. If months-long nursing were the human default, you'd expect our anatomy and our hormones to be tuned for it, the way a machine is sized for the job it does. But the deeper record tells a different story. The numbers we treat as normal turn out to be the recent invention, and the body remembers something older. Think about the broader primate backdrop for a second. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, nurse for 5 or 6 years. Orangutans go even longer, somewhere around 8. We're not chimpanzees, and we shouldn't pretend the comparison is simple. But when every other great ape runs on multi-year nursing and modern humans run on months, that gap deserves a question, not an assumption. Therefore, the real question becomes how anyone could even check what ancient mothers actually did, because you can't ask them. The answer is preserved in teeth. If this rewrote what you thought was normal, subscribe and drop a comment on what surprised you most. It helps this channel more than you'd think. Here's what teeth actually are. Beyond the thing you brush twice a day, tooth enamel grows in daily layers, the same way a tree puts down rings. And once those layers form, they never remodel. Each one permanently locks in the chemical signature of whatever the child was consuming at that exact moment. A tooth is a biography written in chemistry, and it doesn't lie. The first method that cracked this open used barium. In 2013, a team led by Tanya Smith showed that barium tells you nearly to the day when a child started and stopped drinking mother's milk. Because the placenta blocks barium, levels stay low before birth. The moment nursing begins, barium jumps. As solid food replaces milk, it falls again, until it settles back to that prenatal floor. That signature survives in fossils hundreds of thousands of years old. They proved the method on modern children and macaques with known dietary records, and the tooth timeline matched real weaning dates almost exactly. A few years later, calcium isotopes opened a second door. A 2017 study in PNAS showed that breast milk carries a distinctive light calcium signature, and that measuring the ratio of 2 calcium variants across enamel layers reveals how long milk dominated a child's diet. So now you have 2 independent chemical clocks reading the same life event from 2 different elements. It's a fair worry to raise, and one worth answering directly. A trace in a fossilized tooth sounds like it could be contamination, or noise, or some artifact of the dirt around it. The reason researchers trust it is that both methods were validated against living subjects with known histories, and they keep producing the same biological signal in teeth that have no contact with each other. You can't fake a barium curve that matches a real child's real diet. Therefore, researchers could point that same tool at our actual ancestors, and the question becomes what it finds. Now comes the part where the method pays off, because the numbers aren't what the modern assumption predicts. In 2019, the calcium isotope team measured 37 South African hominin teeth, spanning Australopithecus, Paranthropus, and early Homo. The results split cleanly by lineage. Early Homo enamel showed very low calcium isotope values, the signature of prolonged milk dominance. Australopithecus and Paranthropus didn't. Those older lineages moved their infants toward other foods relatively quickly, while early Homo kept milk at the center of the diet for much longer. The isotope signature can't hand you an exact calendar date, but it points to a nursing period stretching well into multiple years, with a longer gap between births to match. Already, this cuts against everything the modern assumption predicts. It says our direct ancestors weren't on the modern months-long schedule at all. They were on something closer to the great ape timeline, compressed a little, but still measured in years. And the longer interbirth interval is part of the same package, because a mother still nursing her child years in isn't yet carrying the next one. But that's only one lineage in one region and one method. You'd be right to wonder if it generalizes. Therefore, the obvious next check is another ancient lineage entirely, Neanderthals, who were ancient humans too, and who didn't match early Homo at all. A 2018 study using barium and oxygen isotopes on 2 Neanderthal molars from Péray in France, roughly 250,000 years old, found one child weaned at roughly 2.5 years. An earlier Belgian Neanderthal had shown a sharp barium drop around 15 months, but researchers read that as a stress interruption, not a natural weaning age, because the curve looked nothing like a normal weaning curve. Early Homo nursed far longer than Neanderthals did, a real behavioral difference, not a blanket rule for all hominids. And the obvious objection is already lining up. A skeptic has a fair point here. Isotope ratios reflect what an animal ate and drank, which means they also reflect the local food web, the climate, and the chemistry of the soil. So you could argue that a low calcium value just means a particular environment, not a particular parenting behavior. It's the strongest counter-explanation on the table, and it deserves a direct answer. If environment alone drove the signal, you'd expect it to track region and climate, not lineage. You'd expect 2 species living in the same valley to look the same, and the same species in different valleys to look different. But the data split by lineage, not by site. Early Homo and Australopithecus sat in overlapping South African contexts and still produced different signatures. Therefore, environment alone can't explain the pattern. And the calcium method reinforces that, because its signature reads, maternal milk intake specifically, from the mother's body processing calcium for milk, not from generic food. Then, a second ancient data set lands from somewhere else entirely. A 2016 isotope study of Jomon hunter-gatherers in prehistoric Japan, a completely different continent and ecology, showed the same prolonged nursing pattern. When that signal turns up in early Homo in South Africa, in Jomon foragers in Japan, and in Neanderthals at a shorter interval, the cleanest red is real behavioral variation across groups, not noise. The skeptic's objection doesn't disappear, but it stops explaining the pattern. And fossils are one thing. The real test is whether anyone still lives this way. There are people alive today who never took up farming and who never stopped nursing the old way. The Kungsan of the Kalahari and the Hadza of Tanzania are the 2 most studied, and both still nurse on demand, through the day and through the night, for years. Among the Kung, work by Melvin Connor and Carol Worthman documented nursing continuing for roughly 3 to 4 years and beyond. The mechanism is blunt and biological. Frequent suckling suppresses ovulation, so a mother nursing that long is also spacing her children 3 to 4 years apart, without any contraception. The nursing and the birth spacing are the same system. You don't get one without the other. The Hadza sit a little lower on the same curve. They wean around 2.5 to 3 years, about 6 months earlier than the Kung, with a similar gap between births. That range matters because 3 to 4 years sounds like one suspiciously tidy number. It isn't tidy. The pattern runs from about 2.5 up past 4, across cultures with no contact, on different continents, eating different foods. But these are modern people, not fossils. A careful critic could ask whether their pattern is a recent cultural invention, rather than an ancient inheritance. Therefore, the fossil record has to answer the question on its own terms, and it does. The isotope evidence from ancient teeth points to that same multi-year pattern, not a brief one, recurring across hunter-gatherer groups who never shared a farming tradition. The living record and the fossil record agree, which almost never happens in prehistory. What did that agreement actually mean for the human story? 3 to 4 years of nursing was never a lifestyle preference. It was the biological rhythm that set how fast humans could have children, how long each child stayed dependent, and how mother and infant fit together in a world with no stored food. Prolonged nursing-spaced births, 3 to 4 years apart, which meant fewer mouths to feed at once and more investment poured into each child during the riskiest years of life. That isn't a small detail. It's the scaffolding early human survival hung on. But farming rewired that math, because now people had grain stores and milk from domesticated animals, and a mother could feed a child from sources other than her own body. Nursing could shorten, births could close together, and populations could grow faster. Therefore, the old biological norm quietly became the thing we now label extended, while the recent invention became the default we never question. The anomaly is us, not them. If 3 to 4 years of nursing sounds surprising, wait until you see how differently ancient humans slept, moved, and raised their children compared to us. That video's right here, and it will change how you see normal all over again. And don't forget to subscribe before you go.